Every morning, the campsite was rearranged as if someone had quietly visited while they slept. I noticed it on the second day, though later I would wonder if that was true, or simply the first morning I allowed myself to see it. My tent, a dull green dome, sat closer to the fire pit than I remembered. Not dragged, no furrows in the pine needles, no scuffed earth, but subtly repositioned, rotated a few degrees so its door faced the trees instead of the lake. My boots rested neatly side by side, toes aligned with the zipper, though I was certain I'd kicked them off carelessly the night before. The forest watched in the way forests always do, without eyes, without urgency. Morning light filtered through branches and needles, dusting the clearing in pale gold. Somewhere high above, something fluttered and went still. The air smelled of damp soil and cold ash. "Did you move my tent?" I asked. Claire shook her head, still wrapped in her sleeping bag, hair flattened on one side like she'd pressed it into the earth. Jonah was crouched near the fire ring, coaxing last night's embers back into life. Marcus stood at the edge of the clearing, staring into the trees as if counting them. "No," Jonah said. "Why would I? Just looks different," I said, already unsure of myself. Claire frowned. "It's the same." I let it go. Memory is pliable in unfamiliar places. That's something I've always known. The woods had a way of erasing straight lines and replacing them with impressions. Where you thought you stood, where you thought you were facing, where you thought you'd been. Still, as the day wore on, the feeling didn't leave me. When we returned from hiking that afternoon, the logs around the fire pit were arranged in a tighter circle, angled inward like listeners leaning closer. The cooking gear had been grouped by size. My pack, mine, sat against a tree I didn't remember choosing, its straps tucked neatly beneath it. "Okay," I said. "Now it's not just me." Marcus stiffened. "I thought I was losing it." Claire laughed too loudly. "You guys are messing with each other. It's obvious." But she checked her tent stakes before crawling inside that night. So did I. Sleep came thin and shallow. The forest was louder after dark, not with animal calls, but with the slow articulation of wood and leaf and soil settling into itself. Something creaked far off, then answered closer. I dreamed of walking in circles that tightened with each step, paths folding inward. In the morning, the clearing was smaller. That was the only way I could describe it. The trees hadn't moved. Of course they hadn't. But the space between them had contracted. Our tents were closer together, nearly touching, arranged in a rough oval around the fire pit. The pit itself had been cleaned. Ash swept into a precise spiral that made my eyes ache if I stared too long. Jonah swore under his breath. Claire went pale. "No," she said. "No, no, no." We searched for tracks. There were none. The pine needles lay undisturbed, the soil smooth. Whatever had rearranged us hadn't walked, or hadn't needed to. That day we argued about leaving. Maps were unfolded and refolded. Bearings were checked, rechecked. The trailhead was only a few miles away. Easy, obvious. But no one packed. I don't remember who suggested staying one more night. I only remember the relief that followed, heavy and inexplicable, like agreeing to something I'd already promised. The rearrangements became more deliberate. Our tents formed shapes now, not random, not merely closer. Angles repeated. Distances echoed one another. The fire pit sat dead center, always, no matter how sure I was that it hadn't been before. When I stood in the clearing, a strange vertigo set in, as if the space were subtly misaligned with itself. At night, I woke convinced someone was breathing just outside my tent. Not loudly, patiently, as though waiting for me to remember something important. By the fourth morning, my tent wasn't mine. That was the thought that surfaced, uninvited but absolute. The fabric was the same, the tear near the seam familiar, but its orientation was wrong. The inside felt different, too spacious, or too tight. Couldn't tell which. My boots were gone. In their place sat Marcus's. "I didn't switch," he said when I confronted him. His voice trembled. "I swear." Claire was crying quietly, rocking back and forth. Jonah wouldn't meet my eyes. When I tried to recall the first night, how we'd arrived, where we'd stood, who'd chosen which spot. My mind slid off the details like water on bark. The memories were there, but rearranged, nested inside one another. I couldn't tell which belonged to me. That afternoon I found the pattern. It revealed itself not all at once, but with the calm inevitability of something ancient resurfacing. The clearing, the tents, the fire pit, they mirrored the surrounding forest. Tree spacing echoed tent placement. Fallen logs aligned with our sleeping bodies. We weren't being disturbed. We were being mapped. The forest wasn't moving our things at random. It was adjusting us night by night, aligning us with a shape it remembered, or needed. When I pressed my palm to the ground, I felt it. Not movement, not sound, but intention. A vast patience. As though the land had been waiting for us to arrive, so it could finish something it had started long ago. That night, the rearrangement was complete. There were no tents when I woke. No fire pit. No packs. We lay directly on the forest floor, bodies positioned with careful precision, limbs angled just so. Claire's hand rested inches from mine, though I didn't remember reaching for it. Marcus lay opposite us, eyes open, unblinking. Jonah was gone. Or maybe he had never been there. The clearing no longer felt like a clearing. It felt like the inside of something, a chamber defined by absence rather than walls. Light filtered down in a perfect circle. Understanding settled over me, gentle as moss. The campsite hadn't been rearranged to frighten us. It had been corrected. We were out of place when we arrived. The forest had simply been restoring an old configuration, one that required bodies, heat, breath. The ritual wasn't something being done to us. It was something we were completing. When the light shifted and the pattern held, the forest exhaled. And we remembered how to stay still. The deeper they hiked, the more the trees began to look disturbingly familiar. I didn't say it out loud at first. Saying it would have given the feeling edges, turned it into a problem instead of a passing thought. Forests repeat themselves, that's what they do. Trunks, leaves, shadow, light. Pattern is not intention. Pattern is comfort. Still, as my boot pressed into the soft trail loam, I felt a faint hitch of recognition. The birch to our left leaned at the same shallow angle as one we'd passed earlier. Its bark peeled in the same vertical curl, like a pale ribbon frozen mid-unwind. Ahead, a pine with a lightning scar split its trunk into twin spirals. I was sure we'd already walked past it. Did we, loop? Maya asked behind me. Her voice was careful, as if she didn't trust the forest with it. Jonah checked his watch again. He'd been doing that more frequently, tapping the cracked face like it might wake up and correct itself. Trail's straight, he said. Map says so. The trail looked straight. Packed dirt, occasional roots, stones pressed into the soil like knuckles. But the light was wrong. Sunbeams slanted through the canopy at the same angle they had an hour ago. Late afternoon gold, unmoving, as though time had stalled somewhere above the leaves. We walked on. The forest thickened without ever seeming denser. Trees spaced themselves evenly, never crowding, never opening into clearings. Each trunk bore small, repeating features. A knot shaped like an eye, a patch of lichen resembling a handprint, a scar low enough to brush with your fingers if you reached out. I did reach out once. The bark was dry and cool, ridged beneath my palm in a pattern I knew too well. My stomach tightened with the certainty that I'd touched this exact tree before. Same groove, same rough seam where bark met exposed wood. I pulled my hand back quickly, as if the tree might respond. Guys, I said, we've passed this one already. Maya stopped. Jonah didn't, not immediately. He took 3 more steps before realizing the silence behind him was wrong. He turned, frowning. No, he said, we haven't. Then tell me what this is, I said, pointing. He stared at the tree. I watched his confidence erode in small increments. The tightening of his jaw, the shift of weight from one foot to the other. Coincidence, he said, but the words sounded rehearsed. Forests repeat. You said it yourself. I didn't remember saying it out loud. We continued, quieter now. Our footsteps sounded too loud. the crunch of leaves echoing oddly, as if the sound were bouncing back at us from just ahead. Somewhere to the right, a bird called a single sharp note, then repeated it exactly same pitch, same interval. Once, twice, 3 times. Then silence. My sense of direction thinned. The trail markers, small blazes carved into trunks, began to feel like accusations. Each one identical. Each one placed at the same height, the same shallow angle, as if measured. After a while, I noticed something else. The trees weren't just similar. They were specific. A maple with a branch broken halfway up, splintered outward like a snapped bone. I remembered ducking under it earlier. A fallen log coated in thick moss, spongy underfoot. A ring of stones half buried near the trail's edge, arranged too deliberately to be random. We encountered them again and again. Time became elastic. My watch said 20 minutes had passed. My legs said hours. Hunger came and went without resolution. When I tried to recall how long we'd been hiking, my thoughts tangled, memories stacking on top of one another without order. I remembered starting the hike. I remembered packing. I remembered a version of this trail that ended. But the details slid when I tried to hold them. "Do you remember the drive here?" Maya asked suddenly. "Yes," Jonah said too quickly. I hesitated. The image that surfaced was incomplete. A road through trees, the hum of tires, sunlight flashing between trunks. No beginning, no end. "I think so," I said. Maya swallowed. "I don't." The forest felt closer then. Not physically, space remained, but attentively. The air thickened, heavy with the scent of sap and old leaves. Every surface seemed to lean toward us, bark catching light in ways that highlighted faces where no faces should be. We stopped without agreeing to. The trail ahead looked identical to the one behind. Same curve, same roots, same stones. Jonah laughed, a brittle sound. "Okay, very funny. Which one of you is messing with me?" No one answered. I realized then that the familiarity wasn't uniform. The trees didn't look like each other. They looked like memories. That birch? It matched one from a camping trip when I was 8. The pine with the lightning scar mirrored a tree outside my childhood home. The maple branch, broken exactly where my father once tied a rope swing. I hadn't told anyone that. My chest tightened. I turned in a slow circle, cataloging the forest with new eyes. Each tree tugged at something half-buried. Places I'd been, paths I'd walked, moments I hadn't thought about in years. Not exact replicas, but interpretations. Close enough to resonate. "Maya," I said softly, "what does that one remind you of?" She followed my gaze, her face drained of color. "My grandmother's yard," she whispered. "The tree I used to hide behind." Jonah shook his head, backing away. "No, that's not. This isn't." He tripped over a root that hadn't been there a moment earlier. Or maybe it had. Maybe it always had. The forest wasn't looping us by accident. It was sorting us. Each step pulled us deeper into alignment, the trail narrowing not in width but in possibility. Paths that didn't resonate fell away. Only the familiar remained. Only what fit. When I stopped resisting, when I let myself follow the pull of recognition, the forest seemed to relax. The light softened. The air warmed. Ahead, the trail opened into a space that felt unbearably right. I knew this place, not consciously, not in words, but in the way my body leaned forward, eager, in the way my breath matched the slow, patient rhythm of the trees. Jonah was shouting behind me. Maya was crying. Their voices felt distant, mismatched to the environment, like sounds from another room. I understood then. The forest didn't hunt with teeth or speed. It hunted with memory. It learned the shapes that made us pause, the sights that made us linger. It built itself from the inside out, using us as references. A recursive map, a living archive. Those who recognized themselves too strongly were kept. Those who didn't wandered until they faded. I stepped off the trail. The ground welcomed me, soft and certain. The trees leaned closer, their bark warm beneath my fingers, grooves aligning perfectly with my hands, as if they'd always known their shape. Behind me, the trail straightened. Ahead, the forest remembered me completely.